Good morning and welcome to News for Hearing Impaired. I'm Shubhendu with my colleague Meera Bhatia. Let's begin with the headlines. Lockdown permitted to be relaxed from today by state governments to facilitate certain economic activities in non-containment zones, subject to conditions specified in Ministry of Home Affairs guidelines. Many states, including Delhi, Punjab, Telangana, decide not to ease lockdown. Prime Minister Narendra Modi shares his ideas on COVID-19 crisis on social media, highlights how digitization is helping people in these difficult times, calls for youth to take lead with their innovative zeal to provide a new work culture. India slams Pakistan on Pak PM's comments on India's internal affairs. External Affairs Ministry says instead of concentrating on fighting COVID-19, Pakistan is making baseless allegations in order to shift focus from its own abysmal record of treating minorities. COVID-19 cases stand at over 13,000 across the country, while death toll crosses 500 mark. Over 2,300 people cured and discharged. No new positive cases found in Goa since April 3rd. COVID-19 cases continue to spiral globally with more than 24 lakh cases and 1.65 lakh fatalities. In worst affected United States, death toll nears 41,000. And as the holy month of Ramzan begins this week, several countries, including Saudi Arabia and UAE, and leading Muslim clerics issue strict guidelines for offering prayers at home and avoiding public gatherings during Ramzan. In the first easing of lockdown measures for COVID-19, hotels in Kerala, highway dhabas in Haryana, tea gardens in West Bengal and mining in Jharkhand will be among the establishments that will open for business from today as states across India partially lift curbs as part of a staggered reopening of the economy. The selective relaxation allowed by the centre during the second phase of nationwide lockdown, enforced till May 3rd, focuses on rural sector and daily wage earners and does not apply to so-called hotspot districts. It is to be noted that these easing of restrictions will not be applicable in the containment zones. The easing of restrictions in various sectors include all health services, including Ayush, all agricultural and horticultural activities, operations of fishing and marine and inland aquaculture industry, plantation activities such as tea, coffee, and rubber plantation with maximum of 50% workers, animal husbandry, financial sector, social sector, Manrega works with strict implementation of social distancing and face mask, public utilities, movement of loading and unloading of goods, cargo, inter and intrastate, online teaching, distance learning to be encouraged, supply of essential goods, commercial and private establishments, industries, industrial establishments, both government and private, construction activities, private vehicles for emergency services, medical and veterinary care, and for procuring essential commodities, and for personnel travelling to place of work in exempted categories as per instructions of state, union territory, local authority, and Office of Government of India and offices of state and union territory governments. Delhi government has announced that there will be no relaxation in lockdown from Monday, that is 20th of April, as the number of coronavirus cases continue to rise in the national capital. The state government will review its decision after a week. Delhi government has been increasing the number of containment zones over the last week. As of late last evening, there were 76 after 8 fresh containment zones were announced. And Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao on Sunday announced that the ongoing lockdown in the state will continue till May 7th without any relaxations. The centre permitted certain relaxations after April 20th, but the state cabinet decided not to give any relaxation. The state cabinet would meet on May 5th to take further decisions after reassessing COVID-19 situation, as the state has recorded a total of 844 cases. Punjab Chief Minister Amrinder Singh announced on Sunday that the state will not relax the lockdown till May 3rd, and any decision on the way forward will be taken after an expert committee set up to formulate state's lockdown exit plan submits its report. Punjab government has directed Deputy Commissioners to ensure strict enforcement of the curfew in all districts and check availability of essential items. The state also asked officials to not issue curfew passes during the month of Ramzan that begins next week. As the nationwide lockdown continues, workplaces are shut. Millions of Indians are in their homes working through digital medium. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached out to these people and shared his experiences as he too is working from his home in the time of lockdown. Prime Minister wrote a blog post titled "Life in the Era of COVID-19" on a popular website. In his post, he highlighted important points, including the need to be efficient and creative in these difficult times. The post reflected Prime Minister's spirit of turning adversity into opportunity. He called for the youth to take lead with their innovative zeal to provide a new work culture. This adversity can be a turning point in redefining business spaces and work culture. And Prime Minister Modi took to Twitter to hail contribution of small shopkeepers during the virus-induced lockdown in the country, and at the same time stressed on practicing social distancing to mitigate and combat the pandemic. And following Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's unwarranted comments on Sunday about situation of minorities in India during the COVID crisis, External Affairs spokesperson accused the bizarre comments by Pakistani leadership are an attempt to shift focus from the abysmal handling of their internal affairs. He further said that instead of concentrating on fighting COVID-19, they're making baseless allegations against their neighbors. He also added that on the subject of minorities, they would be well advised to address the concerns of their own dwindling minority communities that have been truly discriminated against. In the daily joint media briefing of Ministry of Health along with Ministry of Home Affairs and ICMR said that over 3,86,000 tests have been conducted in the country so far. The total number of confirmed cases in India stands at 16,116, with 2,302 people who have recovered so far. COVID-19 pandemic has claimed 519 lives in the country so far. Some good news is also lingering around the corner. There have been no new cases reported in 54 districts of 23 states in the past 14 days. 755 dedicated COVID-19 hospitals have been set up. Over 1,400 healthcare centers have also been established. There will be zero relaxation in containment zones and only selective relaxation outside containment zones from April 20th will be allowed. The ICMR said that 5 vaccines are in human trial phase and a high-level task force has been formed to work on drug testing and vaccine. Goa has become the first Indian state to rid itself of coronavirus, as all of its 7 patients who had earlier tested positive have recovered from the infection. Chief Minister of Goa, Pramod Sawant, said that the state had been strictly following the lockdown rules from the sealing of state borders to enforce the restrictions on the movement of people since January 22nd, the day when Prime Minister Modi announced Janata Curfew.
खुशी हो रही है कि गोवा में 0 केसेस कोविड के आफ्टर द 3rd अप्रैल एक भी पॉजिटिव केस नहीं मिली है और लास्ट पेशेंट जो था नेगेटिव आ गया है। मुझे अनाउंस करते वक्त कि गोवा में एक भी इस वक्त पॉजिटिव पेशेंट नहीं है, बहुत खुशी की बात है। मैं कॉन्ग्रेचुलेट करता हूँ हमारी पूरी कोविड हॉस्पिटल की टीम।
The G20 health ministers held a virtual meeting on 19th April to further coordinate efforts in combating COVID-19. Ministers addressed the need to improve the effectiveness of global health systems by sharing knowledge and closing the gap in response capabilities and readiness. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan, who took part in the virtual meeting, said, "Global health crisis has created an opportunity to dive deep into nature of what connects us all, while simultaneously providing us collective strength and wisdom to accomplish the unthinkable." In the meeting, the minister also said that India has been successful in tackling the public health emergency of international concern. He also emphasized on five-fold hallmark approach that India is following to combat corona pandemic. And those steps are maintaining a continuous situation awareness, preemptive and proactive approach, graded response as per continuously evolving scenario, intersectoral coordination at all levels, and lastly, most importantly, creating people's movement to combat this disease. US President Donald Trump has said that Republicans were close to getting a deal with Democrats on another legislative package to help alleviate economic damage done by coronavirus pandemic. At a White House briefing, President suggested that there could be a resolution by today. On their hand, governors of many states are clamoring for more tests to detect new infections as well as tests for immunity as part of their plans to reopen their states and economy. Meanwhile, New York continued to see hospitalizations decline to 16,000 from the high of 18,000, and the number of patients being kept alive by ventilators also fell. There were 507 new deaths, down from a high of more than 700 a day. US has by far the world's largest number of confirmed coronavirus cases, with over 7,59,000 infections and over 40,000 casualties. Italy witnessed a broadly stable situation in place over the last 2 weeks, with the daily tallies of deaths and cases continue to slow down. Deaths from COVID-19 epidemic rose by 433 yesterday, the lowest daily tally in a week. The number of new cases also slowed to around 3,000 from a previous of 3,491. Italians across the country entered their 7th week in lockdown from today. The total death toll since the outbreak came to light on February 21st rose to 23,660, the second highest in the world, after that of United States. Total confirmed cases in Italy stood at 1,78,972. Spain's death count from COVID-19 has surpassed 20,450, while a total of 1,98,674 cases are registered in the country. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez also said that he would ask Parliament for a third 15-day extension of the lockdown imposed to curb one of the world's worst outbreaks of the new virus, taking the restrictions up to May 9th. Although he said children will be exempted from the new restrictions, they would be allowed to go outside after April 27th, though these relaxations would be subject to avoid contagion. Meanwhile, health staff from Spanish hospital La Paz clapped after taking a minute of silence to remember hospital's chief of surgery who died due to coronavirus. And France's Prime Minister said that the country was starting to beat back the coronavirus as the outbreak's death toll approached 20,000 yesterday. New hospitalizations continued to a slow decline in France. French Prime Minister said that coronavirus situation in the country is improving slowly but surely, while he also warned that crisis was far from over. France has been in virtual lockdown for nearly 5 weeks but is due to start easing some confinement measures from May 11th. France registered 395 more deaths from coronavirus on Sunday, bringing the total number of casualties to 19,744. In Britain, deaths toll from COVID-19 in hospitals rose by 596 yesterday. Yesterday's data tend to show smaller increases in number of fatalities. With a total of 16,060 deaths, UK is one of the 5 countries with more than 10,000 coronavirus casualties. Meanwhile, UK Cabinet Minister Michael Gove has denied reports that the government was considering easing the restrictions within 3 weeks, with schools opening as soon as May 11th. He said any decision on lifting the lockdown would be based on advice from health experts. Meanwhile, a flight carrying personal protective equipment or PPE has been delayed in Turkey. The 84-ton shipment, including 400,000 surgical gowns, was due to arrive in UK on Sunday afternoon. The government hopes that the flight is expected to arrive by Monday evening. Meanwhile, 2 people were applauded by the staff as they were released from the temporary hospital at London's NHS Nightingale Hospital on Sunday afternoon. Workers of the hospital gathered outside to see off the patient, cheering and whooping as the ambulance carrying him drove off. They were the first people to be successfully discharged from the care since the hospital welcomed its first patients on April 7th. The emergency facility was built in only 9 days to boost COVID-19 treatment capacity in London. In Canada, at least 13 people, including a policeman, were killed in a shooting rampage in Nova Scotia on Sunday. 51-year-old person wearing a police uniform shot people in several locations across the Atlantic province. The 12-hour rampage ended in a car chase, and the attacker is also dead. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau described it as a terrible situation, while Nova Scotia Premier termed it as one of the most senseless acts of violence in the province's history. Mass shootings are relatively rare in Canada, which has tighter gun control laws than the United States. Israelis held demonstration at Tel Aviv against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday night under strict coronavirus restrictions. Thousands gathered at the rally wearing face masks, carrying black flags and keeping 2 meters away from each other. The demonstrators accused Netanyahu of destroying Israeli democracy and said their former ally, blue and white leader Benny Gantz, was allowing it to happen by seeking to join him in the government. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is negotiating a power-sharing deal with his political rival, Benny Gantz, to form a coalition government. In a matter of fact, Israel has reported more than 13,000 COVID-19 cases and 172 deaths. Some restrictions during the lockdown have been eased since Saturday. In the wake of coronavirus pandemic, UAE Fatwa Council issued guidelines on fasting to the Islamic communities around the world during this Ramzan. The Council warned against unusual practices and reminded that it is obligatory to follow authorities' instruction to avoid gatherings and to stop Friday prayers as a precautionary measure against communicable diseases, risk that increases with mass gatherings. The 5 fatwas issued by UAE Fatwa Council are as follows. It is permissible for COVID-19 patients and frontline workers while on duty and not to fast during Ramzan. Taraweeh prayers could be performed individually at home. However, man of the house may lead the prayer for his family. Eid al-Fitr prayer individually at homes or in group with their respective family members without a sermon, as congregation would endanger lives. Dhuhr prayer in place of Friday prayer, as it has its own congregational requirements. If such requirements are not met due to some obstacles, then it is no longer valid. On Zakat and Zakat al-Fitr, the Council said it is permitted to pay Zakat earlier. As the holy month of Ramzan begins later this week, in view of coronavirus pandemic, prominent Muslim clerics from Jammu region have appealed to people to stay in their homes and offer prayers at home, maintaining social distancing.
जो हुकूमत ने यानी गाइडलाइन दी है हमें सोशल डिस्टेंस की और सेहत के एतबार से जो है अलग अलग रहने की, मस्जिदों को बंद करने की, रमज़ानुल मुबारक के महीने में हुकूमत या दुनिया का कोई आदमी आपको रोज़े रखने से नहीं रोक रहा, आपको नमाज पढ़ने से नहीं रोक रहा, आपको किसी चीज़ से नहीं रोक रहा। सिर्फ आपको रोक इससे रहे हैं कि आप जमा कहीं ना हो, गैदरिंग ना करें, आप सोशल डिस्टेंस रखें।
कुछ जो इंतज़ाम किया गया है वो हमारी ही भलाई के लिए है और कुछ लोग इस तरीके से सोच रहे हैं कि हो सकता है कि सरकार की तरफ से हमारे ऊपर कोई प्रेशर डाला जा रहा है। ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। इसी वबा से बचने के लिए कि हम भी सेफ रहें और दूसरे भी सेफ रहें।
कि जो ये बीमारी फैली हुई है इसके अंदर ख़ास करके गवर्नमेंट ने और जहाँ के हमारे यहाँ के मीडिया ने और सब ने जो है ये कहा है कि इसमें इनफरादी तौर ही रहा जाए और अपने घरों के अंदर ही रहा जाए। और रहा मसला नमाज का और दीगर इबादत का, तो इसके अंदर तो बेहतर सबसे मैं तो ये कहूँगा कि नमाज हो या कोई भी इबादत हो मजमूई तौर पे इकट्ठा होकर वो ना की जाए और इनफरादी तौर पे वो अपने अपने घरों के अंदर ही जो है उसका पालन किया जाए और उसको देख रेख जो है अपने घरों के अंदर ही तक महदूद रह जाएं।
The union government has created an online data pool on covidwarriors.gov.in of doctors, including Ayush doctors, nurses and other healthcare professionals, volunteers from NYKs, NCC, NSS, PM, GKVY, ex-servicemen and others for use by ground-level administration at state, district or municipal levels. The dashboard is available for use by various authorities to prepare crisis management contingency plans based on available manpower in coordination with nodal officers for each group. This database can also be used to utilize services of volunteers for enforcing social distancing at banks, ration shops, mandis and for providing help to the elderly, divyang and orphanages. This will also help states and union territories to move human resources from one location to the other for their utilization. The letter also calls for the use of iGot online training module mounted on a special digital platform, integrated government online training portal for training and capacity building. It may be recalled that Government of India has constituted 11 empowered groups to formulate plans and provide solutions to address the challenges of COVID-19 outbreak in the country. And Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray has reacted on the mob lynching incident reported from Palghar. He said that nobody guilty in this heinous crime and shameful act will be spared and they will be brought to justice in the strongest way possible. Thackeray added that police has arrested all those accused who attacked the two sadhus and a driver and the police personnel on the day of the crime itself. And with that, we conclude this bulletin. Take good care of yourself. Namaskar.